This year marks the 25th National March for Life. The pro-life movement, since its inception in Canada in the early 70s, following the passing of Trudeau's infamous omnibus bills in 1969, which opened the floodgates to abortion, amongst other problems. But people like you dug in, organized yourselves. In fact, it was Campaign Life Coalition sort of came out of the will of the people, and it was formed because we wanted an organized sort of leadership role, taking the lead on it and trying to get a pro-life bill passed in the House. As always, we like to honor these individuals, these special individuals, these pro-life extraordinaires. And I am super privileged to be able to introduce to you tonight. Actually, Jim Hughes will introduce this special person. And so I'll ask Jim Hughes to come up to the mic and introduce our pro-life activist, mother, fighter, and we would like to dedicate this year's march to that lovely lady. Jim?
The first March for Life was held on May 14, 1997. This was to commemorate the passing of the infamous Omnibus Bill of 1969 by then Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau. Among other things, this bill decriminalized abortion, opening the floodgates to abortion on demand in Canada. That first March, 600 participants gathered at the Supreme Court of Canada and marched to Parliament Hill. In the year 2000, however, it was decided to gather on Parliament Hill for a rally and march through downtown Ottawa. From a few hundred to tens of thousands, the National March for Life has grown to become the largest annual pro-life demonstration in Canada.
Well, I've been asked, how did this start? How was it? Well, there's the late lawyer called Nellie Gray in Washington, D.C., who in 1973, after the Roe v. Wade decision, said, we've got to do something about this. We've got to hold a meeting and organize something in opposition. So they organized the March for Life in Washington, D.C. She said at the time, all the people that came in, they were members of the Democratic Party. All the men were members of the Knights of Columbus. She said to me, isn't it interesting how things have changed? The leadership in the pro-life movement now has many from the evangelical churches, from the non-evangelical churches as well, and others from other communities that aren't Christian. And she said, isn't it funny too, because we were all Democrats at the time, and now only one person, and now that I know in the leadership is still a Democrat, we're all Republicans. And so she said, why don't you start this march in Canada? I said, oh my God, what a pile of work that's gonna be, I don't know. So others here, Father Alphonse de Valk, and of the Basilian Fathers, the late Father Alphonse de Valk, and others, encouraged us to start this march. And so the first one, as you saw, had less than 1,000 people there. There were a number of clergymen from various faith communities, parish priests and whatnot. And the whole thing grew year after year. And you have to give great credit to Archbishop Terry Prendergast, who was the former Archbishop of Ottawa. And he got behind this in big-time fashion. And he would phone me when I was on holidays in Florida and say, Jim, it's Terry. Oh, Your Grace, yes? He said, I got 6 more bishops coming to the March for Life. I said, oh, that's fabulous. And so it was through people like Archbishop Terry Prendergast, the Knights of Columbus, of course, who did yeoman work right from the beginning to help us, EWTN in publicizing what we were doing, but it's all of you. It's the grassroots pro-lifers that made this possible and help it to grow. So congratulations to all of you for that. You know, on Parliament Hill in 1988, I had the pleasure of being there with Mother Teresa, the late, Saint Teresa of Calcutta now. But she said to me, Mr. Hughes, she called me, Mr. Hugh, the beautiful thing about the pro-life movement is that it's ordinary people doing extraordinary things for God. So here I am tonight with a group of people, I could say they gotta be ordinary people. That's what we all are. Absolutely. Jeff Gunnarson mentioned all the workers. You wouldn't believe how much work goes into organizing the march and the Rose Dinner and the youth banquet and the youth efforts as well. And over the years, we've had people say, oh, everything is run so smoothly over all the years. Oh, yeah? I got news for you. Behind the scenes, I can remember one snowstorm in Ottawa, and we had to fly the speaker to Montreal and then arrange a car to bring him to Ottawa, and EWTN wanted to introduce him, and he was the last person that they interviewed. It was phenomenal. Father Frank Pavone, our great friend from the United States with Priests for Life, said, okay, I'll be prepared to help you. What can I do? And so Father Frank got involved too right in the beginning, and it was terrific. But in those early days, it was Karen Murawski and Paul Lozon, Wanda Hartland. Up until the present, with just so many people, Yoli and Deanie and Josie and Maeve and so many others that have put so much effort into all of it, you didn't hear about the problems because they wouldn't tell you. But there have always been challenges, and they've risen to those challenges. Now, over the years, I've had a great pleasure in being introduced to some terrific pro-life leaders. One of them was the former abortionist, the late Dr. Bernard N. Nathanson. And Bernie Nathanson was influenced a great deal by, well, one cleric, John Cardinal O'Connor of New York City. But there were two women especially that got him, and one was Judy Brown of American Life League, and the late Nellie Gray. And both of them said no to abortion. No compromises, no exceptions, and we added here in Canada, no excuses. And it was those women that really made the impression on the late Dr. Bernard Nathanson. And in Canada, we've had so many women that have just done yeoman service, much more than the men. They were able to just dig in and not give up. Laura MacArthur, Gwen Landolt, just loads and loads of people. And so this year, when deciding who to dedicate this pro-life march to, there was only one person that they could think of that deserved this title. She's a wife and a mother of 5 children, all but 2 are boys. And they're with us here this evening, Hermione and Jaja, and we're so happy to have them with their mother. But Mary Ellen Douglas could not have carried this out without her husband, Alan. And Alan was there as the rock support for Mary Ellen and all the things that she did. She was the national organizer of Campaign Life Coalition, a board member. She was the president of Campaign Life Coalition Ontario and the chairman of Campaign Life Kingston. She organized all the life chains and whatnot. She did everything. And she and Steve Jelsovac and I, Steve Jelsovac now with LifeSite News, and we qualified all the candidates running for office. We worked with all the provincial premiers on this, and we had this great team of people. But it was Mary Ellen who formed the conscience of Campaign Life Coalition. Many times they say, well, the conscience of Campaign Life Coalition is Mary Ellen Douglas. And she certainly is. And what can I say more about her? I've had three sisters in my life. My sister Pat lives in Burlington, my late sister Dorothea, and my sister Mary Ellen Douglas. We've been in close contact every single day, and she's not reluctant to say, something you said I disagree with. You should be saying this or that or whatever. And she was so tough with her kids, I know, with her 2 daughters. She just was phenomenal. She said to them, You just have to stand up like Grandma stood up and your aunt and her whole family. So Laura and Maggie, they learned. But they also knew, too, that their mother was so tough. One day they said, why don't we say some swear words? Why don't we say hell? And the other one said, no, hell is something we hear about at church all the time. No, that's not a swear word. I said, oh, yeah. What other word could we say? Well, we could say ass. Well, ass, no, that's like a donkey. Well, let's try it anyway. So they went in for breakfast, and the mother, Mary Ellen, said, Maggie, what will you have for breakfast? And she said, oh, hell, I think I'll have Cheerios. And her mother grabbed her by the ear and took her into her bedroom, and then turned to her other daughter, Laura, and said, Laura, what will you have now? And she said, well, you can bet your ass I'm not going to say Cheerios. Mary Ellen, you have been an inspiration to the pro-life movement. Your motto is pray to God and then go out and do the best you can. And we rely on God. There's an old Irish expression that I mentioned on an EWTN interview today. It's pray to God and row. No, that's Joe Borowski's. Pray to God and then row for shore. Mine was trust in God, all others pay cash. Mary Ellen Douglas, you have been an inspiration, and you continue to be, even though you've had to step back to take care of your ailing husband, Alan, who is tonight watching the Maple Leafs play hockey, I'm sure, his favorite pastime. Mary Ellen Douglas is the lady that we've dedicated this 2022 March for Life to. And Mary Ellen, please come on up and receive our acclamation.
You have to know that Jeff calls me half pint, so I'll have to bring the microphone down here. Oh my. This is a remarkable thing. I'm very humbled. Hello, Margie. Oh my goodness, aren't they beautiful? They look better on you than me.
For the best. Only the best. You want me to put them back onto your seat? You don't get them. Okay.
Whoop, I'm caught on. I was very reluctant when Jim mentioned that he might do something like this to say yes. Not that you can say no to Jim very often, but I accept this tribute on behalf of all of the people, the thousands of people who have come over the last 25 years to be here at the March for Life. And further back than that, all of the pro-life family that began in the early days and stayed with us for 40 or 50 years. Some of them are still here. Others have gone on to God for their reward. But the pro-life movement is the most wonderful family, apart from my own, of course, in the whole world, because they are so dedicated and so caring and so in tune with what God has asked them to do. The one thing that was consistent over the 50 years with Campaign Life is that a position in Campaign Life didn't mean anything. It just meant you had more work to do. And that was guaranteed in the Toronto office because in spite of the fact that Jim Hughes has been such a remarkable godsend of a leader to the pro-life movement, if the toilet backed up in the Toronto office, it was Jim that went with the plunger. So Jeff, now that you've inherited this title, I hope you have a good plunger at Hamilton. But the point is, we're here to do God's work, and whatever God called us to do, He always gave us the courage to do it. And one of the things that Jim often pointed out was not to plan too much about what you're going to say, because God will give you the words, and he always did. And sometimes things would come out that you were flabbergasted by because they were in your head. Most times there wasn't much in my head, but I could be amazed with what was said. And I don't want to take too much time. I know everybody's hungry. But I also want to dedicate this tribute to the spouses of those thousands of people and the workers in Campaign Life Coalition who stayed at home to keep the home fires burning and allowed their spouses to be here and to do the work. My husband being, to my mind, he's the love of my life, and he never ever refused anything I said in terms of, can I do this for the pro-life, can I go into this meeting or that. From the very first day when Maggie, who was our second child, was 2 months old, Kingston started committing abortions in 1972. It began in 69, but in 72 they arrived in Kingston. And I said to Alan, do you mind if I go to this meeting? There's some people gathering who are concerned about the babies that are dying. He said, no, go ahead. And I asked him a few weeks ago, did you ever regret that? He said, never. He was always my greatest cheerleader, always stayed there working with my mom to keep the family together. So all of you people who do that, this is for you too. So I want to just say a word to the next generation. Believe me, when I went to that meeting in 1972, I didn't think I'd be here for 50 years. But God has surprised us. So I think we're beginning the second round of 50 years. And like every other great movement that is in God's hands, sometimes it takes longer than we expected. And I applaud the people who have taken up the challenge to continue on with Campaign Life under Jeff's leadership, and all the people in the office and across the country. The people who I think of, they're just, sorry. The faces were just passing me there of all those ones who have gone on. And you'll find their names in the pages of the interim. All of the great people who have, as I said, gone to their reward. They're the greatest people. And the people here now will take up the challenge and go on from here. We will do everything we can to save the babies. But I'll just finish with a statement by Henry Hyde, who was the, I've forgotten, Jim, what was Henry Hyde? The Hyde Amendment in the States way back in the early days. Okay. But I may forget the important words, what he said, but I hope it'll come out right, because what he said was, he felt that when you stand before the throne of God to be judged, a terror will rip your soul because no one will be there to defend you. But he said, I believe everyone who worked in the pro-life movement will have a chorus of voices there who were never heard on earth, but will say in heaven, they fought for me, be kind to them, Lord. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jim.